Hello, Gabe Hiller here, Hohenzollern on YouTube and Howto Couch on Twitch. And today I'm going to show you how you may be able to get data off of a drive with bad sectors, including the data in the bad sectors. Now I'm using a utility called HXD, which for some reason does something weird. You'll have to run it by right-clicking and running it as administrator, which is what I have done. So under Tools here, you can open a disk. I am opening this disk here, which I've hooked up via USB. And there's the disk. Now, I know this disk has some bad sectors on it, and it's very important that I get the data off of those sectors because this is a hard drive from a PlayStation 3, and they're encrypted, and if any sector that has anything in it basically is bad, then it can't rebuild the drive. And so then if any important sector goes bad, then you're screwed. I didn't realize until important sector went bad that sectors were going bad at all. Normally what you would do to make an image of this disk and then write it onto another disk of a very similar size, I was actually able to get the same model hard drive to replace it with. Normally you would just select it all with Control A and save it. Now I'm just going to, because we're going to end up with a bunch of files here, and I'll show you why in a moment, I'm just going to use the number of the first sector as the name of the file. Just gonna save it on an external drive since all my local drives are full at the moment. One of the reasons I've not been making more videos. And we'll just call it PS3. Okay. And so I'm going to save it as, there we go, 0. And it's going to start saving the hard drive, an image of the hard drive that is. Relatively quickly here we're going to run into trouble. Notice this is very painstaking, so you really have to have more time than money to make this worth it, or you've already tried all the things that money can buy. You can't be in a hurry, but sometimes your data is that important to you. There are certainly other utilities you can try. I tried a couple, none of them did quite as well as this, and the PS3 was very picky, but eventually I did make a hard drive that it would read and work with from this one. Aha! I just stopped making noise. And that is because we have come to a CRC, cyclic redundancy check data error. So now the file that we made is going to be incomplete. It'll have a bunch of zeros at the end. So we're not going to be able to use it unless we can somehow strip off those zeros. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to figure out where the error is. And we'll do that by changing the length to a power of 2. Now these values are all in hex, so powers of 2 will start with 1, 2, 4, or 8 and have all zeros after it. So I'm going down to the next power of 2, less than the size of the drive, and we're going to call it the same thing because we don't want to overwrite that file. That's no good. And after a few seconds here, we'll see that, yeah, we're going to run into the error again. I'm not going to try and explain hexadecimal in this video, but suffice to say, where we would normally use the digits 0 through 9, hexadecimal uses the digits 0 through 9 and the letters A through F to express digits between 0 and 15. And yeah, it's a different base. I'm sure there are plenty of videos online about bases if you want to look that sort of thing up and understand hexadecimal. Okay, so once again, we've come to a data error. So I'm going to decrease this base of 2. I'm going to divide it by 2, which in hex is quite easy. Very, very similar to dividing by 2 in base 10, except the next step will be different. And I'm going to continue to do this until I get a good file. It may take quite a few things. And then we'll get to see what the weird magic that HXD does is. I don't understand precisely why it works. It's really weird, but I'll show you it working here in just a moment. And you'll notice the remaining time each time is about half of what it was last time because we're trying to read about half as much disk each time. Okay, once again, data error. So when we divide this by 2, it ends up being that. Oh, there's a 6 there. I didn't mean for there to be a 6 there. Okay, that's better. Ah! So this particular drive that I'm working on is a Toshiba drive. I've not done a lot of work with Toshiba drives before. I have had luck with similar algorithms with a Maxtor drive, but I've had very bad luck with Maxtor drives in general going bad. They just seem to go bad faster than other brands of drives. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend them if you want a drive that will last a long time. I suspect that this drive went bad simply because I use my PS3 for the same thing all the time, watching YouTube videos mostly. And yeah, that means that it reads the same sectors every time it reboots, and it's been rebooting a lot recently. YouTube just likes to lock it up somehow. Maybe that's because the bad sectors were starting to show up. I don't know why. Okay, once again, we have to try again. Getting closer here, though. Not anymore, what's going on inside the hard drive is very obfuscated, so it may be very different from one brand to another. And that's the reason why this may not work on the particular hard drive that you happen to have. But I suspect that it will work on, I guess, Toshiba's and Maxtor's at least, and possibly other brands as well. You don't really know precisely how many times the drive itself rereads things or what it does to try and read sectors that aren't coming out quite correctly. Checksum doesn't match or whatever. And then the operating system may also try and do some retries as well. And as sectors go bad, it'll take more and more tries to read it, but it will eventually succeed. However, there's a limited number of retries that the drive and the operating system will do. So at some point, maybe just one more try would get you the data. But that means that sectors can go bad and you may not even know that they're going bad. Like you might be able to tell that things are running a little slower, but if the hard drive detects that a sector is bad, it may not even tell the operating system anymore. Which means you may not actually be able to find out about it until it actually finally goes so bad that you can't read it anymore. But obviously you'd like to know before that, wouldn't you? And a lot of hard drives will swap in spare sectors. They'll have a bunch of spare sectors at the end of the drive, and as they discover that sectors are bad, they'll add them to a list and start using the sectors at the end of the drive instead as replacements. That's one way that it can happen. And then if it runs out of sectors at the end of the disk, what does it do? Modern SSDs will go into will go into read-only mode, but hard drives never had a setting like that, I don't think. So as the drive gets so bad that it runs out of spare sectors to sub in for bad ones, it just fails not very gracefully. Doesn't even really warn you. And especially if you're using it inside some other device, like this one was inside a PS3. The PS3 has its own method of handling bad sectors, as does the drive. And are they complementary? You have no way of knowing. It's all very proprietary and opaque. So you can see we're getting quite close. We're getting about a fifth of the way there before it runs into the bad sector. This is a very interesting set of data here. It looks like a file allocation table. Now this disk doesn't show up as readable in Windows at all. It shows up as having no partitions. So obviously it's a completely proprietary PS3 format. But it seems to have a file allocation table. At least that's what this looks like to me. You see it's got 16-bit numbers. I think it's 16-bit numbers, and they seem to be increasing by 1 predictably. Actually, they might be increasing by 2, oddly. Okay. Down to 1. Hey, we have a good file. Okay, so that file contains up through this address here on this hard drive, and all of that data is good because this program will not write out a sector if it's bad. It just quits. So we have one good file. So now we're going to start here, and we're going to try and go that much again, and we've got a new file name now. So we better cut and paste it. Control C. There we go. Now this should run into the error almost immediately. Yes. Okay. So now we have to start cutting this in half again. This may not seem like this is going to work. It may just seem like kind of witchcraft that I'm doing, but if you stick with it, you'll see what I mean. So once again, dividing the file size by 2, trying to get a good file. Getting smaller and smaller. Pretty soon, we ought to be at a place where we get a good file. Not yet, though. Also want to think about how many bad sectors you actually have on the drive, because for every bad sector you have to do a process similar to this. The more you know about the drive, the less long the process is. But did we finally get a good one? Yes, we did. That one wrote. Okay. So now we add this 80,000 to here. There it is. And it's hexadecimal, but 80,000 hexadecimal. And I'm going to leave it at 80,000. Now we know that the bad sector is somewhere in this 80,000. But here we're going to copy this and use it for our new file name so we don't overwrite the last good one. And that way we can concatenate them all when we're done. But we expect this to fail. So we know it's somewhere in that 8,000. Is it in this 80,000? Is it in the first 40,000? The answer is no, it's not in the first 40,000. So 8 plus 4 is C in hexadecimal, so we're adding 40,000 to that one. We're going to see if it's in the second 40,000. Now, it better be, because otherwise we don't know where it is, right? And indeed it is. Now, of that 40,000, is it in the first 20,000? No, it is not. C plus 2 is E in hexadecimal. Is it in the second 20,000? We expect it to be in the second 20,000, right? And indeed it is. But of that 20,000, is it in the first 10,000? Seems like it is, because we can't even select it. So now we have to make this even smaller. How about 8,000? 10,000 divided by 2 is 8,000 in hex. It doesn't seem to be in the first 8,000. About in the second 8,000. We can't select that, so we have to go down to 4,000. This is where things start getting weird, and I don't understand why it does what it does. Not in the first 4,000. It's somewhere in here, isn't it? But wait, it's not in the second 4,000 either. What just happened? We went past it. We went past the bad sector, and it read it anyway. How it did it, I don't know. I think it has something to do with trying to read small amounts of sectors. You're less likely to get a CRC error when you read smaller numbers of sectors. That's my only guess. Or it has something to do with the fact that because I'm doing this by hand and taking time between each read, it gives the drive some time to reset or something. I don't know. But we just went past the bad sector and we read it, and it's fine. So if we then go to F0, there we go. I'm going to set this to 10,000 so that we end up at a nice place when we're done. And that worked. No, it didn't. I think there's actually another bad sector. They do tend to go in pairs. Clusters. Sometimes it just errors really badly. But almost always when you get down to 2,000 or 1,000 with this drive, it just reads it anyway. So I'm going to have to go all the way down to 1,000. Okay, it read it. And then when we go add in the 1000, it should be in this section here that we've selected. And yet, we're able to write it to disk. It managed to somehow read the sector, just because it tried to read so few at once that, I don't know, it tried extra hard. I don't know why. But we're getting past these bad sectors, slowly, one at a time. That worked. That's not working yet, but if we make it smaller, that one worked. And the next one, when the bad sector, it was in one of those two areas that we just saved, and yet it saves. Now, again, this is painstaking work, and I don't know that it can be automated because some of it probably has to do with the delay. So now if we look at this directory here, if we just add a bunch of zeros in front of these, so they all have the same number of digits. If I go to command prompt, they're all in the right order. So, once you've done this to your entire drive, you can do something like copy/b star to whatever you want to call it, PS3 image. And then you've got an image, and you can use HXD to write that image to a drive. You have to just cut and paste it, as far as I can tell. It's not easy or fast. I was able to cut and paste about 200000000 hex at a time with my particular computer. You might be able to do more or less than that. You copy it from the image, and then you go to the drive, and you just use paste right. You have to open the drive open the disk. You have to get rid of the read-only click here. You have to unclick that so that you can write to the disk, and then you have to save it, and then go and cut and paste another section, and rinse and repeat until you've copied the whole drive. There may be some other way that you know of to copy an image onto a drive directly using some other utility better than this, but I wasn't able to get it off of the drive with anything other than HXD, and the secret seems to be try to read continuous smaller and smaller sections of the drive until it works. Why does it work? I gave you some theories, but that's all I really know. And yeah, good luck. And hopefully this will allow you to get some data off some drives that you thought were goners. Bye for now.
Just to let you know, this video is over soon. So rub your eyes and stretch your thighs and sing in tune. It's time to find another kind of video, for this one is nearly done, you know.